Today, we are continuing the Prepared Advocate series. This episode is for the mom or caregiver who walks into a short meeting or appointment knowing there is something important she needs to say, then feels the words slipping away once the conversation begins. The concern is real. You have been carrying it for days, perhaps weeks. Finding a clear way to explain it becomes harder when someone is asking questions, taking notes, watching the clock, and moving through an agenda you did not create. Let's talk about what happens in that room. The appointment is almost over. Most of the expected questions have already been asked. Sleep, appetite, school, medication, friendships, behavior. A teacher has reviewed the classwork. A doctor has looked through the chart. A specialist has typed several notes into a computer. Then someone asks, is there anything else you wanted to mention? The concern that brought you there is still sitting in your chest. It has been building through small moments that did not seem connected at first. Now only a few minutes remain, and you are trying to decide where the story should begin. You mention what happened last week, then remember something from the month before. You stop to explain why you did not bring it up earlier. The other person asks a question, and suddenly you are answering that instead of finishing the point you came to make. The conversation ends, and you are left with the uncomfortable feeling that you talked a lot, but never reached the heart of the concern. I have felt that pressure too. Sometimes the words are hard to find because you are trying to carry too much of your child's story through a very small opening. You know what happened before the difficult moment. You remember what your child said afterward and how long it took everyone to recover. The person sitting across from you only knows what you can fit into the time available. That pressure can make you speak faster. Every detail begins to feel urgent because you are afraid the concern will sound too small if you leave something out. Then the part you most need someone to understand gets buried inside everything else. One sentence can help you come back to it. The part I most need you to understand is, you can return to that sentence when your thoughts begin spreading in several directions. It also lets the person listening know that you are about to name the center of the concern. Picture a mother whose son begged to join a robotics club. He talked about it for weeks. He watched videos about building machines, asked questions about the equipment, and counted down the days until the first meeting. For a while, he came home excited and described everything the group was creating. Then one afternoon, the leader gave several directions while the children were moving around the room. Her son completed the first step, but missed what came next. He began working on the wrong part of the project. Another child pointed it out in front of the group. He stopped working, moved away from the table, and did not rejoin the activity. In the car afterward, he said, I am always the one who does not know what is happening. The next week, he refused to go back. During an appointment, his mother begins with the robotics club. Then she mentions the forgotten materials, another activity he left early, and something similar that happened several months ago. Each detail matters to her, but the point becomes harder to hear. What she most needs the person to understand is this. One confusing moment has turned into my child believing he does not belong there. She could say, the part I most need you to understand is that my son is beginning to avoid activities after becoming confused or making a mistake in front of other people. At the last robotics meeting, he missed part of the directions and started working on the wrong section. When another child corrected him, he stopped participating. In the car, he said, I am always the one who does not know what is happening. Now he refuses to return. I would like help understanding whether this is happening in other settings and what we should pay attention to next. The language is plain, but it carries the full concern. She explains what she has been noticing, brings in one moment, shows what has changed, and asks for help deciding where to look next. She does not have to decide whether the problem involves attention, memory, embarrassment, anxiety, or something else. The people who know her child in other settings can add what they see, and qualified professionals can consider the larger picture. What matters in that moment is keeping the situation from being reduced to, he lost interest in robotics. That is not what his mother is seeing. She is seeing a child who wanted to belong, became confused, felt exposed, and is now protecting himself by staying away. For many children with ADHD, the visible reaction is only one part of the experience. Other people see the missed instruction, wrong answer, unfinished task, or refusal to participate. At home, you may hear what your child decided the moment meant about them. I am the dumb one. Everyone else gets it. I always mess things up. They do not want me there. Those words can stay with you long after the activity is over. Repeating them during a meeting can also bring emotion into your voice before you are ready for it. You begin explaining what your child said, and halfway through the sentence, your voice changes. You look down because you do not want the person across from you to assume that your emotion is the whole reason you are concerned. Then you rush through the rest, trying to regain control. Caring deeply about what is happening does not make your observation less useful. Still, emotion can make it harder to protect the sentence you came to say. Writing down one or two lines before the conversation gives you somewhere to return. That same slowing down is part of the work inside the From Chaos to Calm Guide and Companion workbook. They were created to help you step back from the rush of daily family life. Notice what keeps repeating and put words around moments that can otherwise blur together. As something becomes clearer, you may recognize the concern you most need to carry into a school meeting, appointment, or conversation with a specialist. You are not preparing a speech. You are saving the part you do not want the room to miss. Your note might say, the part I most need you to understand is that he has started believing he is the child who never knows what is going on. If the conversation moves away from that point, you can look down and return to it. I know I have shared several details, but the part I most need you to understand is that he has stopped going to something he loved because he now thinks he does not belong there. That sentence can also help when the answer you receive feels too small for the concern you brought. Someone could say that every child becomes embarrassed sometimes. Another person might point out that your child's grades are fine or focus only on the decision not to participate. You can hear what they are saying while keeping the concern in view. I understand that embarrassment happens. What still worries me is that he has stopped attending and is speaking about himself as though he is always the one who fails. Or, I hear that his grades are currently okay. I am trying to understand why he is beginning to avoid situations where he could make a mistake in front of other people. You are keeping the conversation connected to the change you have been watching. Deciding what to ask for can feel just as difficult as explaining the concern. You know something deserves attention, but you may have no idea which support, professional, or next step would make sense. You can say that, I need help understanding what we should look at next. You could ask whether the same pattern appears in class, what happens when your child becomes unsure, or what everyone should pay attention to over the next few weeks. A follow-up conversation may be the only next step you are ready to request. The people involved do not need you to design the entire solution before they join the conversation. There will also be times when the right words arrive after the meeting. You close the car door and finally understand what you had been trying to say. That can feel like a missed opportunity, but the conversation does not have to end there. A short message could say, "Thank you for speaking with me today. After I had time to think, I realized I did not clearly explain the part that worries me most. My son is not only having difficulty during the activity, he has started avoiding it and describing himself as the child who never knows what is going on. I wanted to add that as we think about what to watch next, you are adding the part that was missing. Important conversations often become clearer over time. You hear something, think about it later, remember another detail, or realize that a response did not fully reach what you were trying to explain. You can return and say, I have been thinking about what we discussed, and this is the part I am still concerned about. Parenting a child with ADHD can make concerns especially difficult to summarize because the same child can look very different from one day to the next. Your child can participate confidently one week and refuse the next. A set of directions goes smoothly in one setting and becomes confusing somewhere else. One mistake is laughed off today and feels devastating tomorrow. That inconsistency can make you question whether the concern is serious enough to mention. Listen for what keeps returning underneath the different situations. Perhaps confusion often becomes embarrassment. Embarrassment begins turning into avoidance. A mistake leads to a harsh statement about who your child believes they are. Your child stops asking for help because they do not want anyone to know they are lost. That deeper pattern is often the part another person needs help seeing. Before your next meeting or appointment, think about what you most want the other person to carry away from the conversation. What would make your concern incomplete if it were left out? Write one sentence. The part I most need you to understand is. Let the rest of your explanation grow from there. Add one recent moment, your child's words when they matter, and the change that worries you now. Then ask for help deciding what should come next. You are not expected to fit your child's entire story into one appointment. You are protecting the part that should not be lost. This is Lola, and you have been listening to the Mom Parent ADHD podcast. If this episode helped you find the center of a concern you have been carrying, you can find the rest of the Prepared Advocate series on Substack. You can also connect with Mom Parent ADHD on YouTube, Instagram, and Threads, as well as through our website at momparentadhd.com. As always, I am sharing general advocacy support and my experience as a mom raising a child with ADHD. This podcast does not replace guidance from a qualified medical, mental health, educational, or legal professional who can consider your child's individual situation. Please contact an appropriate professional when a concern is severe, worsening, affecting safety, or significantly interfering with daily life. Until next time, remember that imperfect words do not make the concern less important. When the conversation begins moving too quickly, come back to the part you do not want anyone to miss. Give yourself grace, breathe deep, and keep showing up in the storm. You're doing better than you think.